Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Blip Pod. I am Nolan,
And I'm Joey.
and it has been a while since we've been doing this.
It's been probably close to 3 months, to be honest.
Probably, yeah, I think we did the last one at the beginning of February, I think. It has been a crazy time for both of us. We are right now actually recording in different states, and stuff is just always happening. But thankfully, this summer we're getting back into the groove of things.
No school hanging over our head.
Without school hanging over our heads, we both made a couple films this year, which have kind of to moderate degrees of success. So will be out soon. They'll probably be somewhere. But we're starting off this summer and this kind of new blockbuster summer movie season with a couple of good TV shows that I was not expecting, to be quite honest with you. So today, kind of just on the docket, we're gonna give our review of MODOK. We liked it. There you go. There's a bit of a spoiler. And then Eternals with a trailer just dropped, and then kind of general news and bits at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm ready to go right into it.
Ready to rumble? Okay.
Yeah.
MODOK. What were your initial thoughts?
Well, I definitely had a different mindset going into this than you did.
Mm-hmm.
One, I used to love what's it called, Robot Chicken a lot when I was back in the day. I used to watch before school all the time. I was a big fan of it. I loved the style. And when I saw that they were making a MODOK TV show with the Robot Chicken, I was actually very intrigued because with Marvel, besides Deadpool, we don't really have any like rated R adult content like that with Marvel. And also it was like a weird niche character like MODOK, how we were talking about in WandaVision. We were hoping to see him come out in his little chair just bloop, 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 bloop. But
with that sound effect.
Yeah, with that sound effect. But instead of seeing that in WandaVision, we got to see it within a Robot Chicken's type style adult show, which I honestly love a lot because you really get to emphasize like how weird his character is.
Yeah, and that's like one thing, and we'll kind of get into it later, but MODOK in the comics and like everything he's in is like kind of intimidating, you know what I mean? He's never played for laughs. So I'm like, I'm impressed and kind of enjoyed the likability they were able to pull off with someone. To be clear, I think part of this goes to, we'll just get this right off the bat. Patton Oswalt as MODOK is amazing casting for a couple reasons. One, the guy is such a nerd, and you can tell that he legitimately is giving his everything to this kind of goofy TV show. Two, there are surprising, and we'll do non-spoilers right now. There are surprisingly emotional moments in the show. Not like, crying your eyes out, but somewhere you're like, oh, wow, that's some good character development. And then most of it is comedy, and he manages to do both amazingly well.
Yeah, first within the trailer, just all comedy. You watch the first couple episodes, you're just like, wow, this is actually really funny. And then later on in the series, because I watched it before you did, I remember I texted you. I'm like on the 7th episode or something like that, and I'm just like, wow, this actually gets like really deep for no reason, like out of nowhere. Just like, damn. I'm just like, it's almost like a Taika Waititi film, like Jojo Rabbit. You're just like, look, it's a comedy, and the next thing you know, towards the end, you're just like, oh shit, this is.
This is the Holocaust. It got me again.
It's not supposed to be funny. There's actually like real shit going on.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, no. I did. I don't know. I just found it weirdly enjoyable, and I didn't expect to like it. I'm not gonna lie. And you mentioned this, kind of going in with different mindsets. I did enjoy. I didn't watch a lot of Robot Chicken, but what I saw of it, I enjoyed specifically some of the Star Wars ones when I was younger. And I sort of have like a love-hate relationship with this style of comedy where I brought this up to you in the past, but like, let's say Rick and Morty is an example. And I feel bad comparing this to Rick and Morty because it's not Rick and Morty, and you shouldn't go into it thinking it's anything like Rick and Morty. And I know people have kind of been comparing it to that online. It's not. It's its own thing. But the one thing I like, but also sometimes dislike about Rick and Morty is that they kind of sacrifice interesting character development and plot lines for kind of weird sciencey jokes. Where it's like, the first season of Rick and Morty, we got that kind of post credit scene where Rick tries to kill himself and fails at even doing that, and you're like, oh no, but like it never like comes back in any real significant way that's like a punch in the gut sort of emotional feeling. But MODOK somehow, and I will say this, I think better than Rick and Morty, manages to balance having a like just non-stop kind of quippy meta humor, almost continuously just like laughing at science, laughing at the genre, laughing at like the Marvel comics, laughing at movies in general, while also actually having a storyline and characters you can get invested in, which is so hard to pull off, and they managed to do it. And I'm kind of amazed that they did, because I did not expect that from the show. Like, as you said, I kind of went in like oh, this will be a fun watch. I'll watch it's short, I'm not going to get too invested in it. But then I kind of blew through the entire thing in like not too long, and I was like, holy crap, that's really good.
Yeah, I watched the entire series nonstop, all in a row, all 10 episodes right after another. I finished it. But honestly, it was a super big gamble for them to make this TV show, especially how you were saying before, how he was always depicted as a serious character, never there for laughs. And they also just released the Avengers game where he was the main villain, and it was 100% serious. And right after that's released, they're playing off on this TV show, which is also another style that we never seen Marvel go after. And having the stop motion like animation that Robot Chicken has, I honestly think that made the series even better than just a normal animation, like a 2D animation or whatever. So I think having all those which honestly was a big gamble for them, but I think they pulled it off greatly.
I will have to say, a bit of fun trivia while also kind of just praise. So they did, for kind of some trivia on this show, is that they did the same stop motion techniques as as Robot Chicken, right? But actually they invented a new type of stop motion frame by frame camera that allowed them to do smooth office style whips in that kind of mockumentary style, which it like, first of all, kudos, because it works so well, but also it really sells. Because you made this point earlier when we were talking, and it didn't really click to me now when I was thinking about it. It feels like a weird reality television show where it's like the family drama, and they're getting divorced, and how will he balance it at work? You know what I mean? And it's kind of sold by the fact that you have that kind of camera movement in a stop motion animated TV show, which is just so impressive, especially because stop motion animation is kind of like not died off, but definitely taken a back seat with like, CGI and like Pixar and such. Stop motion is definitely kind of basically Leica does it, the people who do like, Kubo and the Two Strings, that sort of thing. And like nobody else does it. And the fact that they were like, we're going to invent a new type of kind of camera and software for a MODOK TV show is just like, oh, you actually really are interested in making this a good show. And that's just kind of indicative of the entire show where you're just like, oh, they actually cared about making this kind of stupid thing.
Oh, exactly. I definitely, especially how I said to you before about it being kind of almost like a reality TV show, which also makes it even funnier for this character, how he's a villain that in the Marvel universe that just wants to destroy all people with superpowers and take over the world, and then they show this other side of him of making it a family drama of how he's having a divorce and losing his family and losing control of his business of AIM. He's losing control of that. So kind of, and I also like what they did with the character, instead of making him just like a super serious mad genius, they, even though he is super like one of the smartest people in the world with technology and building stuff and inventing stuff, they also made him an absolute idiot too within the real world.
I love
that part though. Like he's like I love seeing like those kind of conflicts within a character where they're the smartest and also the stupidest at the same time.
Okay, so just forewarning, we'll get into spoilers now. A couple things. One, young MODOK was unexpected and I loved it. Mm-hmm. I think there are some things that sold the TV show to me as it kind of went on, because like every episode they introduced a new thing that worked so well and made me still interested. I really liked. I really weirdly liked the thing with him and his daughter. Specifically when they have to go to like the corporate like seminar thing, when she's like she uses like, you know, manipulation, kind of like texting social media tactics to basically like trick these billionaires into like loving MODOK in the same way that, you know, a teenager on the internet would. That cracked me up and was pretty funny without being like cliche, you know what I mean? It was funny without being like, oh, wow, aren't teenage girls evil? But it was like, oh no, she loves her dad and is like weirdly doing what she's good at to help him. I loved the two Lus. Dude, first of all, he can do no wrong in terms of voice acting. But
every single show he's in, I always like absolutely love his character. It's always like my favorite. I loved him like as Sonic, Louie Duck, or no Dewey Duck and Lou in this. You know, I'm just like, oh my god, I just can't get enough of it.
You're right. First of all, he's just great, especially in DuckTales. He's so good. But I just like how like they didn't do the kind of return to normalcy. They were like, they're two Lus now, and then they're just like, they're two Lus now, and then like just ran with it for the rest of the show. And I'm just like, this what? Like no other show would be like, here's a carbon copy clone yet somehow robot of your son. Okay.
I love how it's just like in that scene where everyone had the clone robots on themselves and they're just murdering each other viciously. And then they're just like, oh, we can't kill the Lus. Look how cute they are. They're like, oh, we love them. It's like, yeah, I kind of love having two Lus. Let's just go with it.
It's just so good. It was just so. I liked how there was like the joke on Saw. I appreciated the references where he's like, you know, what was he called, like Puzzle Piece or something? I forget who. Something that was like clearly a Jigsaw reference, and then he's like, I will keep you in my trap, you know, blah blah blah. I was like, that's really fun. What was the other? There was one thing I was just thinking of that kind of. Oh, the last thing that made me love this show is the mom's arc. That like, because in the beginning of the show, you're like, oh, how does this kind of normal, nice woman fall in love with like, you know, a criminal psychopath? And then I like how over the season they're like, oh no, she's also a horrible person who's like.
Honestly, I thought she was worse than MODOK.
She's worse. Like
she was the most evil one.
MODOK means well, but he's criminally insane. She doesn't mean well, you know what I mean? But tries to convince everyone that he... Like, MODOK...
She gave her son a peanut allergy.
Dude, that was insane. Like, I like how they brought that back, because, like, when I'm watching that episode, I was like, are they going to play this off for laughs? Because this is, like, insane. But then later on, they were like, you gave him a peanut allergy, you nut job. And they're like, oh, okay, nut job. Bum. Some peanut allergy humor for you. But I like how they even kind of acknowledge the fact that, like, even, you know how Rick and Morty sometimes does, like, super violence for humor's sake, but it has occasionally it does. They've touched on it 1 or 2 episodes, but it never really has any kind of weight for the characters. Like, you never see, like, someone having an emotional breakdown. There's that one episode where, like, Rick and Morty go, like, oh my god, that's too far even for us. But usually they're, like, you know, they murder, like, billions of people and they're kind of fine with it. I like that this show was like, oh no, you have consequences to your actions. Like, yeah, you do all these horrible things, but you're still going to have to deal with the problems that are associated with them.
Exactly.
Which made everything worth more. You know what, the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm like, wow, I really like this show. Like, I kind of enjoyed it, watching it, but now that I'm, like, thinking about it, I'm like, damn, this is good.
Another character that I absolutely loved in this show was the family robot.
Oh my god. The super adaptoid?
Yeah, oh my god, that was so funny. Like, in the beginning, like, he's a super advanced robot, could literally turn into anything, and they use him as, like, a freaking toaster and a blender. They kind of treat him like he's nothing, even though he's a sophisticated android that could literally turn into anything. And there's, like, basically, no one reminds me of, going back to Rick and Morty again, when Rick makes that little robot, and it just passes butter, and goes, what's my purpose? You pass butter. It's like, oh my god. He's making fun of it. It's like, yeah, you're this highly sophisticated thing, and all you do is, your purpose is to pass butter. And then on this show, you have this even more highly sophisticated robot.
He, like, defeats the Avengers at multiple points in the comics, which cracked me up.
Yeah, and they just use him just like Rick used his invention just to pass butter, and they're just using him as super stupid like home appliance stuff.
It's just like most of the jokes in this show land, which is impressive in a show like this where there's so many jokes. But like the super adaptoid stuff works really well, especially at the end where they're like, he's like, "I hope you'll forgive me for betraying you," and they're like, "Oh, you do this all the time," and then they're just like reset. And he just resets, and then like, what do they say something like within like 10 seconds, which is like, "Oh, you don't get like meatloaf or something." And he's like, and then it just does a close up, and he's like, "I will kill you all," and I laughed so hard at just like that really stupid joke, which is just like him every 10 minutes being like, "I'm gonna kill you."
Well, I think it is like
so well done.
Even the joke lands even more is because then there's like this huge event where his family was basically almost killed because he betrayed them. And that's like a huge thing. It's like, oh my god, like you're just taking it back in like nothing ever happened. It's like, this makes no sense. And then it goes into a joke that explains all that, saying like, oh yeah, this is normal for us. We knew exactly that you'd betray us. We just reset you all the time. And then that's kind of helped with the joke play off even better, because it's kind of like this, holy shit, like that's actually kind of big that just happened, but you guys are playing off like it was nothing.
Yeah, and that's kind of indicative of the entire show. Whereas like all the stupid comedy is also explained through character. It never does kind of like stupid comedy for stupid comedy's sake. It uses its stupid comedy as character building, which is, it works really well for the show.
Exactly.
Let me think of some. You got any other takeaways in terms of what you liked, what you didn't like?
I think the Monica character fit well.
Monica, I liked Monica. Yeah.
Yeah. Mainly because how he's like the scientist supreme, whatever, and she's always like right below him all the time. And in this show, they kind of made a big feud between them because she's actually, because they're both geniuses, but then in the real world outside of science, she's also like smart too and takes things seriously and actually wants to do stuff, while MODOK is the opposite, and he's actually like a complete idiot and jokester outside of science, and literally made his company crumble and they went bankrupt because he's just so stupid. And he's her boss. That kind of made like a cool dynamic feud between them, which was actually pretty funny to see, especially when they fought each other in that one episode.
Dude, that was so good. My favorite part of that was unlikely pet friendship. Should we? Yeah. Okay. Ha-ha! Stab. The one thing I really liked about Monica is like they kind of set her up at the beginning where she's like, she has a kid, she's well adjusted, she's everything MODOK can't be. But by the end of the show, you realize like she had a kid with herself that she keeps in a genetically modified container. She is nuttier than MODOK, and she is completely lost it. And I like that kind of slow reveal of just like no one in the show, like literally not a single character in the show is who you think they're at the beginning, because you think MODOK's a crazy maniac who likes killing people, and then you're like, oh, he's like kind of a depressed loner who doesn't know how to express himself, and then you think the mom is like, oh, this is what the mom is, and then she is actually insane sociopath, and then you're like, Lou, what a normal kid, and then that flies out the window in like 7 minutes. You know what I mean? Like every single character is set up to be one thing, and then the writers are just like, oh no, this is who they actually are.
What about Austin and what's the board?
Yeah, that was honestly, that was the only character that was a little too cliche for me. That, you know what, if I'm gonna pinpoint, like if I had to pick at something, he was clearly like stereotypical millennial who says really weird millennial things. And then he was like, but secretly he's being, controlled and betraying humanity. But he will kind of gain humanity and try to stop them. And the minute that happened, I was like, oh, I kind of see where this is going.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I honestly thought, do they say what like alien species, like the board?
Oh, the Axis, the living corporation.
Yeah, I thought, like, I honestly expected that to be, honestly, my like, thought between all this was I think after they finally like Monica beat beat up MODOK in the fight, and shit really hit the rail. I thought, and then the MODOK from the past was coming back, and they wanted, and because his motive was he wants to succeed and take over the world and not become his future self. So then I thought there was gonna be a big thing where Monica realizes like they're actually evil and they're against them, and then Monica ends up leaving the company because even afterwards they started treating her like crap.
Yeah.
So I thought she was gonna leave the company, and the two MODOKs and Monica were gonna go and have this big battle against the board, like that company and the board that's taken over AIM, and that was gonna be the big season finale. But I honestly like how they didn't do that because it's leading up to bigger stuff in the future and later seasons. Because the last episode wasn't a huge, like, big final battle, but it was actually like a very deep, like, character thing for MODOK.
Yeah. We'll. Do you want to get into the last episode before we kind of wrap up this segment?
Yeah, we could do that.
Dude, okay. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't expect that ending. It's an animated sitcom, and I guess I've kind of been burned. Not burned because they're pretty good shows. Like, stuff like Simpsons and Family Guy, they're adult animated sitcoms, and, like, at the end of every episode, everything kind of returns to normal, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I've kind of been like, oh, at the end of every, like, season episode of this kind of show, everything kind of returns to normal. But when they end the season in the future, his family is dead, the time stone is destroyed, his younger self is dead, he's killed everyone who can oppose him, and he's realizing that he's even, like, more broken and lonely than he was when he didn't, when he was living in, like, a 1-bedroom apartment. Mm-hmm. I did not expect that. It wasn't like a twist where I was like, oh my god, but it was like a reasonable, like, oh yuck.
Yeah, that was...
No, sorry, I just choked on my own tongue. Gee. That wasn't my reaction to the show. My reaction to the show wasn't...
I'm talking about how much I love this show, but then the end...
Yeah. Lying like this makes me barf. Oh, that paid Marvel sponsorship. It's not worth it, man.
Son of a gun.
We blew it. We blew our cover. Yeah, I liked it. I'm excited for season 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually when they had the big episode when they're killing their own clone robots of themselves, and they end up killing the young version of MODOK, I was just like, wow, I honestly thought that was going to play a bigger part into the series, because they kind of like were leading up to it, and then they just like killed him within that episode, and there's still two episodes left, and then I'm like, oh well, maybe that wasn't actually the big part of it. Maybe they're leading in towards the season finale with the leaders of AIM right now. But then that also went away again, where they kind of didn't kind of like finish it with them. They kind of just like sold the company and stopped them from selling the product, which stopped their invasion. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's one episode left, and they brought the young MODOK back again. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Now it's going to really come on to us. And then they didn't have that big battle, and they kind of just went on like a Christmas Carol type journey where they're visiting parts of their past and future and everything. I'm just like, you know what? This is, even though I was expecting a big battle to be like very action-packed, I'm actually like, wow, I'm actually very happy they did this. It was actually very interesting and great character stuff.
I really liked the sort of subversion of I kind of assumed that the whole shtick was going to be you're weak because you have a family, right? And I'm going to kill you because you're the weak timeline. And I really like the thing where he's like, oh, no. You're not weak because you have a family. You're going to be the only one who can succeed because you lose your family.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, the fact that, like, because there's that moment where he shuts his eyes and he turns his back. So he kind of chose to let them die, which I think is going to be a cool thing to kind of play around with, where, like, he kind of chooses world domination over his family. And then clearly the second season is going to be, it's a definite setup for, like, he's going to realize he needs his family, and that's what he's going to try to do. And I'm kind of like, as much as I would love for them to, like, be able to go back in time, I wouldn't mind at least one season of him just in the future. You know what I mean? Without kind of, I guess what I'm saying is I don't want them to immediately reverse it where like within 2 episodes he finds a second Chrono Stone and goes back into the past. I kind of want him to
a Rick and Morty thing where they have a big cliffhanger at the end of the season. The first episode's already.
Yeah, that's literally exactly what I'm thinking of. But I didn't want to bring up Rick and Morty again. Where it's like I hope they stick to the bit where they don't just go like they give their storytelling more credit. Where they're like, oh, we actually developed this character really well. Let's kind of let them sit in their own filth for a bit, so you can be like, oh wow, I kind of liked you, but you made a terrible choice.
I think they're going to do that just because the show is very serialized.
Yeah.
So they have like season-long developments. So I feel like they will take the time to really drag this out and kind of develop his character more and do more of a realization to get his family back.
And that is the move. That's what they should do. But I would say in terms of in terms of we'll stick with our weird rating system from last year. In terms of 7 giant tumorous heads.
7?
In terms of 7 out of 7 giant tumorous heads, I will give this 6 loos. Mm-hmm.
I'll give it 6.5.
You give it 6.5 loos. Okay, cool. We don't know what the equability of that is, and none of this really matters because it's an animated TV show about a man with a giant head who sits in a toilet. That's exactly. I'm getting to the point in like my content watching where I'm just like, there's no like like this shit. It's like there's no value. You can't value this in terms of like a number.
Oh no. Wacky shows need wacky ranking systems.
Exactly. In terms of something that may be wacky, let's kind of pivot into our next topic.
What's
okay.
that?
So, today, we will be talking about Eternals, the new teaser trailer? The new teaser trailer that just got released at time of... oh, Jesus, sorry. I'm, like, just hacking up along today. At time of recording, this we watched it yesterday, kind of had a day to think about it and kind of mull it over. First of all, just right off the bat, no idea. Okay, that's a lie. I've seen a lot of leaks and rumors, but I will not mention those in this episode.
Within the trailer, though, no idea.
Yeah. We'll keep
what the
this.
hell is going on.
We'll keep this trailer specific and only referencing to the comics. I won't listen. You know what I mean. Just for sake of listeners, I won't talk about like the leaks and the toy rumors and stuff. This trailer does a very good job of setting up tone without giving away the plot. Because a lot of trailers nowadays. Before we even get into like the reaction, a lot of trailers nowadays
give so much information.
So it's way too much. And this is just like, here are your characters. Here's a couple lines of dialogue. Here's proof that we shot an amazing movie. Gonna go ham.
Yeah, I think you kind of relate this to the Endgame trailers. How it didn't give off like any information at all. It just gave you off like a good tone and showed the characters in some lines.
Yes, and I think they full on reference Endgame and the death of Captain America and Tony Stark. The reason I'm getting more and more excited for this is actually because it is directed by Chloe Zhao, who was just like, the lady who did the Eternals last year, but is now the woman who won the Oscar for Best Directing, got nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, got nominated for cinematography and Best Film for the BAFTAs. Like, she basically kind of took the Oscars by storm this year, and I think to Marvel's benefit, it's kind of almost a blessing in disguise. I mentioned this earlier. It's almost like a blessing in disguise that they kind of are releasing this now as opposed to last year, because there is a small group of kind of indie watchers who watch like indie films, and they kind of stick to their kind of subgenre stuff. Trust me, I love a good indie film. But Marvel's definitely going to bring in that kind of group of people with weird cast, weird storytelling, and a great director who's kind of making waves in terms of new content and style. And I think I'm kind of excited to see what she was allowed to do with Eternals, and I hope they allowed her to kind of bring her style to it.
It does seem like it could be a different style of play than the rest of the other MCU movies, though.
It needs to be, and we'll get into the. I know we keep saying we'll get into the trailer, but the Eternals, like the comic book, the Eternals, is so weird and out there, and so this kind of like grounded in mythology, and not really, it's not your sci-fi, techno, futuristic stuff. It's much more this like mythology and magic and that kind of ancient sense, not in like the I'm a wizard sort of sense. So they really need to kind of sell that this is kind of like what Guardians of the Galaxy, when that first came out, was such a departure from what the MCU was, because the MCU was like movies where people in metal suits kind of like punched other guys, and now they were just like, here's a talking tree and a raccoon that sits on his shoulder, kind of roll with it,
deal with it.
You know what I mean? And I'm hoping that's what Eternals does, is they're just like, oh yeah, these guys are like god level beings, but they also like, one of them is a god level being that has decided to become a Bollywood actor instead. Boom. That's kind of what you're given, and I'm kind of excited for that. You know what I mean? That's as we kind of go into the trailer, we get to see a cast of characters whose names I'm going to have a very hard time remembering. I think you mentioned this. They got a lot of Game of Thrones alumni. They got a lot of Game of Thrones.
The Stark family.
They got, what did you sent me a meme that was like cut off one, kill one Stark and two more take its place.
Kill one Stark and two more shall take its place.
Okay, so we got. I'm looking at the cast right now. We got Barry. Good lord. I think he's another Game of Thrones guy. Barry Ko. Ooh, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that one. As Druig. We got Selma Hayek as Ajak. We got Leah McHugh as Sprite. We got, I don't know who that is. Lauren Ridolph as Mikari. Mind you, I've read these comics. I don't even remember half these people. Brian Tyree Williams as Fastos. I do know him. Kumail Nanjiani as Kingo. That's going to be fun. He's a Bollywood dancer. He's a Bollywood actor. Like, who's like quit his job of being a god to be a Bollywood actor. So that's going to be fun. Gemma Chan as Cersei. Kit Harington as the Black Knight. That would be cool. Richard Madden as Icarus. Also cool. And Angelina Jolie as Thena. Oh, and then Ma Dong-seok as Gilgamesh.
Definitely have everyone in the making for an amazing film.
I will have to say, I hope they get nicknames. I really hope they get nicknames, because
I mean, if they're gods hiding on Earth, I assume they might have nicknames.
I hope so, because there's no way I'm gonna remember Icarus, Thena, Cersei, Kingo, Ajak, Gilgamesh, Druig, Fastos, Sprite, Mikari, and then
I feel like Icarus is an easy one to remember.
Icarus is easy. Icarus is easy, and he's also a huge Marvel character, so that I know him. Mm-hmm. Black Knight, easy. Kingo, easy, but I will accidentally keep calling him Kumail Nanjiani. Cersei, easy. Ajak, easy. Gilgamesh, easy. And then you get into some of the Druig. He's probably going to end up as guy with haircut. Brian Tyree Henry, Fastos. I'll just remember him as the guy from Godzilla vs. Kong. Sprite, that's kind of easy. Then Mikari. I've spent a lot of time talking about their names, which I didn't mean to. I hope so. This movie is going to touch upon why they haven't done anything,
which is probably the biggest question, because they're like debatably some of the most powerful people in the entire universe, and we just had the worst event in universe history with Thanos snapping away half of the universe's population, and that just always raised up questions like, why, if they were there the entire time, why wouldn't they help out an event like that? And they even said in the trailer, we never interfered until now. So that means, a bigger event than Thanos snapping away half the universe is happening now?
So I have a couple theories on this, and that the trailer kind of leans into. So as we kind of know, this has been officially summary. This is nothing kind of leaks, though there are leaks about it. So don't look into it if you don't want spoilers. The enemies of the film are the Deviants, which is a branch of the kind of base creatures of the universe. The kind of base creatures are like Deviants, Eternals, and then quote unquote humans or humanoids. Um, Thanos is technically a deviant, like the Titan race, and then Thanos are deviants. So I don't know if they'll be like, oh, like, the deviants are coming because Thanos was defeated and there was the snap. I think that will probably be the reasoning for the deviants. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, here's my theory, and I think the trailer leans into this. Why the Eternals are stepping in now, and also why the Eternals won't be Avengers members ever. My theory is the only reason they're stepping in is because this problem is Eternals related. As in, they've gotten something that the Eternals have. They've maybe stolen the Eternal ship or technology or powers or something, because these people kind of strike me, not in a bad way, but they're kind of selfish, if that makes sense. Like, they're gods-ish, you know what I mean? They're kind of immortals. They don't really, they're Eternals. I'm sorry, I missed that. But like they're kind of detached from the rest of humanity. So I think that probably the reason that they step in is because they're going to do they do movie thing. They're going to be like, oh, the only reason we're stepping up is because it affects us. But then they'll learn to love humanity for what they truly are.
This little kid really inspired me to show what true life is.
They'll learn through Kumail Nanjiani's insanely ripped body to love humans.
Exactly.
Dude, that guy got shredded for this movie. Like, holy shit. Holy moly.
Hey, you gotta do for the role.
I know. It was just such a turnaround to see him in something like Silicon Valley or like The Big Sick, and then where he's like, not heavy, but like a normal guy, a normal average guy. And then in this one, they're just like, oh yeah, you have like no % body fat, and ta-da!
Typical Marvel diet and training.
I don't know, dude. He looks. I don't know if you've seen the pictures. He's in better shape than most Marvel cast members.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen. Yeah.
But c'est la vie. I don't know what your reaction to this trailer. I don't have too much because almost nothing happens.
I kind of just mainly all I got from the trailer is just basically loving the tone and vibes from it. You know?
Dude, it looks amazing. Like, like cinematography wise, like camera wise. Holy crap!
I mean, it's just like lots of landscapes too. Like, it has a lot, like, environment wise.
Yeah, actually, cool that's too. A bit of trivia I can throw in. Is that one of Chloe Zhao's things for making this movie is she wanted to do as little green screen as possible. So like most of the sets are practical or on location.
I like it a lot. Another. I like this. I like it a lot. Another.
Well, remember that set photo that got leaked like so long ago where they like built a giant pyramid temple in the middle of nowhere.
No CGI.
I'm excited. I will have to say, like, don't get me wrong, I love your CGI Marvel movies, but there's something you can't kind of fake about giant natural landscapes and like giant monuments that are hand built. That I think this movie will kind of bring back to the MCU is that kind of like this is a real grounded world, and we're living in it.
Exactly. I'm kind of the one thing that this trailer really didn't show is fighting and the action. Really didn't show much of that. So I'm kind of wondering what the fighting style is gonna look like, because I feel like every Marvel movie has a bunch of different styles of fighting. How you have Captain America movies, which amazing hand-to-hand combat and camera movements for that. Or you have the Avengers film where it's a lot of like wide, giant fighting and big army scenes. And then you got other movies like Ant-Man where it's like kind of more comedic in Guardians of the Galaxy. Then you got this movie where you kind of have no idea what the fighting is going to look like. If it's going to be a lot of CGI within the fighting because they have these godlike powers, or what's the deal with that? You know?
I think there'll be a relative amount of CGI because they have the gold thing that's going on, and you see Sprite at one point. I think
super speed.
They have super speed, which is cool. They're a deaf character where it's explained as the reason their super speed works so well is that if you actually had super speed, you would immediately go deaf because of the sonic booms. So she's able to use her super speed continuously that fast, faster than Quicksilver fast, because she doesn't have to hear the sonic, or they don't have to hear the sonic booms, which I think is cool.
Isn't that kind of weird that they're having that consequence and science to it in the same universe where you have a different character that's not affected by that?
I think the idea is that Quicksilver is mutant levels of speed, where they are god levels of speed. The Flash.
Why would the sonic boom affect the god, the eternal level, and not the Inhuman version?
The Inhuman version.
Not Inhuman, the mutant version, of Quicksilver. How Quicksilver's a human that's mutated and has super speed, but it's not. He's not deaf. He's not affected by the sonic boom.
I think it's because Quicksilver in the MCU as of this point can't break the sound barrier. You know what I mean?
Can't. Oh, okay.
He hasn't gone. We haven't honestly seen him go that fast.
True. I mean, we have the. But I'm pretty sure he could, right? Because I know the Flash breaks the sound barrier because he goes the speed of light, you know?
Yeah, and I think that the Sprite is going to be on the same level as the Flash, as opposed to Quicksilver, who's guy who runs kind of fast.
Okay, gotcha.
I also don't know, they seem to be kind of changing the mythology a bit, which I'm down for because, nobody, let's be honest, I love the comics. Nobody has an emotional attachment to the Eternals.
True.
If you do, I'm very surprised. Okay, if you legitimately can say you have an emotional attachment to the Eternals, email in. Email in and be like, oh, that's me. You know what I mean?
Thanks for ruining my entire childhood.
Yeah, so I don't mind. Guardians of the Galaxy. No one knew the Guardians of the Galaxy, so they were able to kind of play fast and loose with the canon, which worked. And I think hopefully they'll do that with the Eternals.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what they do. I'm kind of out in the air of not really knowing too much of what will happen, so I'm kind of just open for all possibilities.
I hope this means, and I know that they keep saying this, but we haven't really seen it yet. This has got to mean more cosmic stuff, and not cosmic in we're going to space stuff, but cosmic in the Titans, the Eternals, the Celestials. I'm hoping this means we'll get more of that. Because, in terms of space stuff, we've basically gotten, sci-fi Star Wars-y kind of space where it's go to a planet, break out of prison. But I kind of want to see that more kind of Marvel side where it's I am a god of the universe, Galactus sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Which I think that's going to be a lot of the next Marvel saga is going to be cosmic.
I mean, I hope so, but we also... that's why I'm kind of on and off about this, and why this trailer kind of brought me some hope, is because they keep saying that, but we got WandaVision, which didn't end up doing that. Everyone thought it would be Mephisto and all this stuff, didn't end up doing that. Then they did Bucky, Captain America, and the Winter Soldier. Again, no hint of cosmic stuff, no any of that stuff. Then Shang-Chi, which I haven't heard too much about, but it seems to be more ancient alien sort of vibes, and the kind of more hand-to-hand combat sort of thing. And then Spider-Man No Way Home, and none of those are big kind of cosmic sort of things. And the only thing on the roster is maybe the Marvels and maybe Secret Invasion, but Secret Invasion has kind of been set up as a spy thriller in space. So I'm just when? Because we keep getting told Galactus will show up and a Cosmic Doom will show up and that sort of thing. I'm just well,
just remember, it's the very beginning of a new saga.
That is true.
Think, if you think about the start of the MCU, the Thanos stuff and all the Endgame stuff was very subtle throughout the beginning.
That was
just fully thrown out at you. It's just they're spending time developing it, and they might actually even take longer this time because they got the platform down. They know how to do it, and they want to spice it up or make it a little longer and throw more stuff into it.
Honestly, you're probably right, and I'm just so used to like every year us getting 3 bits of content that build up into like a end game. Mm-hmm. I do forget that sometimes where I'm like we're basically a square one in terms of characters because like the Eternals are brand new characters, and Miss Marvel and She-Hulk and Moon Knight are all brand new characters that we'll need at least 5 years with to even get to the emotional level we might have gotten with Iron Man.
Mm-hmm. And Captain.
Hmm.
And Captain America.
I honestly didn't say Captain America because I was like, nobody will hit the emotional peaks that Joey has experienced with Captain America, so we're not even going to go there.
I know, that's why I feel like I'm not going to care about any other character as much because I'm not going to care about anyone ever like I did Captain America, so.
Just some of the new stuff I'm super excited for, though, I will have to say. Just like Moon Knight with Oscar Isaac, and like Shang-Chi. Just a bunch of really cool characters coming out, and I'm just like, oh, I'm jazzed for these. Miss Marvel, really weird thing, but I've been kind of a Miss Marvel fan from day one. Like, I read the original comic series when it came out, like the first volume, and I loved it. And it's like a weird character that no one seems to really like, but I find really endearing. Not all the time, but most of the time. So I'm kind of like excited for that show, and everyone else is like, oh, Miss Marvel getting a show, and I'm kind of like, yay.
Yeah, and she was the star of the game too, so.
She was, that's why I paid that much money for this stupid game. Well, no, the reason, and I know we're kind of going off the rails and we'll kind of transition, just kind of as we sort of wrap this one up, the reason I'm so excited for Miss Marvel is honestly, Spider-Man in the MCU is not Spider-Man in the comics and previous movies, and we could do episodes about this until the sun burns out, but there's just Tom Holland Spider-Man is missing that sort of bad, what do they call it in the comics, the Parker luck, where like he's not getting the shit kicked out of him all the time and he faces no real consequences for any of his actions ever. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like in Far From Home, he like tries to kill a guy who's flirting with a girl who he sort of has a crush on. Like they're not even dating at that point. He's like, well, kill him. this fellow will kill him. And there's no consequences to that. And I'm kind of hoping that, and while that's like okay in its own right, I'm hoping that Miss Marvel might do something like that where it's like, oh, what's it like being a teenage superhero, but you're also a teenager? You know what I mean? Like you got to face the consequences of staying up late and sneaking out and doing, getting punched in the face by a villain. What would that mean if you showed up, 2:00 in the morning and you had a black eye? What would your parents do, sort of thing? And I'm kind of hoping that Miss Marvel fills that gap.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I think on the flip side, Eternals fills the other side of that gap, which is it's bringing in these kind of mythic, legendary figures that the MCU has kind of lost in Captain America or in Iron Man, where like by the end of their run, they were these, like in terms of characters, these kind of like legendary characters that could do no wrong and they beat everyone. And I think Eternals is that flip side of the coin where they will step into that role of like, oh, the kind of the quote unquote end game. If all those fails, we have the Eternals.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I hope so.
But
I don't know.
There's a lot of stuff that's going to be thrown at us very, very soon. Very, very soon.
Hopefully sooner. I want some trailers.
Spider-Man's said to have this week our first preview for it within, I forget the name of the magazine now. It's mainly going to be talking about Loki, but they said it's also going to be showing stuff from Thor, Eternal, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man, Black Widow, and I don't think I missed anything else. But
Black Widow is still guys, remember, Black Widow is still a thing.
Yeah. It's coming out July, so finally Even though we should have seen it over a year ago. But
Over
whatever. We're gonna get to see it in the theaters together. So
we're not salty about that or anything. Don't mind us.
As much as like a year ago, I was just saying, just release it to Disney Plus. I just want to watch it already. Now we're close to it now. I'm just like, okay, I'm happy I'm watching it in the theater.
They made a smart move. I think I don't know, actually. I don't know if they made a smart move, but it'll be enjoyable to watch it in theaters no matter what.
Yes. Opening night, I think it's going to be... I honestly think it's going to be like almost an Endgame or Endgame level packed theater because it's just been so freaking long that everyone's going to go to the theater.
I don't know. I think... and we'll kind of wrap up this segment at least, but there's a chance people will forget that it's happening.
I don't think so. Well, I think they're going to market hard for it when it's close to it. And, you know, like, our age of Marvel fans are going to pack the theater.
And it's got some really big names of people. Like Florence Pugh is huge in terms of, like, the younger... Jesus, I sound like a 40-year-old man. The younger demographic. And, like, for Stranger Things fans, David Harbour is a huge sell. You know what I mean? It's got Taskmaster, looks great. The Thunderbolts are like potentially going to kind of tie into this in some capacity. A lot of things going for it.
But I just think it's going to be a very packed level theater. It's just because of the fact it's just been so freaking long. We're starting to come out of COVID now that people are just going to be dying to go to the theater. But the movie that I think is going to be a crazy movie watching experience is going to be the Spider-Man movie if all these rumors are true. Because Spider-Man's the most popular superhero ever, and if all the rumors of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are true, then that theater is going to be absolutely wild. So,
you know what? Again, conversation for a different time. Day by day, literally every single day, I hope slightly more that they're not in it.
Interesting.
I think eventually they should do it, but I kind of want a Tom Holland Spider-Man movie
by himself,
where he's the main character. He has not been the main character in any of the films he's been in so far.
Well, no, I don't want them to be in a part of the movie. I want them to be a post-credit scene, and them all be in Multiverse of Madness together. Which that's going to be
bonkers. Watching that.
That's what I want. I don't want them to actually be in the Spider-Man movie because I don't think they ever will be. Just because it's after all those events, I don't think they're just going to throw multiverse stuff within that movie until the very end or post-credit, because then it leads into Multiverse of Madness, and you don't want to take away from the big event that happened to Tom Holland Spider-Man if they just throw them into it. That's just going to ruin everything, which I don't think they're going to do. I think it's going to be, if they are in it, it's going to be an ending or post-credit scene that leads into them all being in Multiverse of Madness.
I hope so. That's the way to do it. Mm-hmm. But that being said, was there anything else we had on for the docket today?
That is all.
That is all? Well, thank you guys for tuning back into our first episode back. We're going to be gearing up, so definitely let us know. Share it on everything. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and YouTubes and the Anchor and anywhere you get your podcasts. We're going to be kind of gearing back up for the summer and maybe potentially starting some side projects, both podcast and film related. So let us know what you're interested in, and definitely contact us if you have any questions or fan mail or anything.
Yeah, we're going to try. I say let's try to post at least once every single week this entire summer.
At least. That's going to be the goal. And we'll say this now, so we're held to it. At least once a week, now that we're kind of got back to this stuff. COVID has kind of died down. We're not crazy with school. It's not this crazy juggling act of a billion different things. We're not juggalos. We're not juggalos anymore. We're not gigolos. We've quit our stripper job and we're going back to podcasting.
Exactly.
Stripper thing didn't pay well. Somehow we think podcasting will pay better. It won't. Okay, we'll see you guys later.
All right, stay nerdy.
And positive, and we will see you next week.